Can it be difficult to figure out what sensory processing is and how does it affect your relationship with your kiddos or show up in everyday life? My name is Veronica Hunter. I'm the founder of ADHD What Now, where I help parents to understand their kids and pick their next steps. Today, we're speaking with Kranowitz, and she is the author of Out of Sync Child. It is a fantastic resource for understanding sensory processing, what it looks like, and it makes it simple. And her demeanor is so welcoming. And I know that you are going to get a lot out of this that you can apply inside of your own life. So let's dive in and enjoy.
A child does not wake up in the morning and say, how am I going to confound all the grown-ups in my life? And how am I going to make people think I'm lazy, stupid, and mean? No, every child wakes up thinking, today I'm going to get it together. Today I'm going to make a new friend. Today mommy and daddy won't yell at me. Well, of course. And so when we understand, my gosh, it's not willful. This kid is driven by the need to survive. Because let's remember what the senses are for. The first job of the senses is for survival. Nature wants us to survive until we're old enough to have babies. Okay? All right. So if the fire is hot, we jump back. We don't cook ourselves over the campfire. If the saber-toothed tiger is leaping toward us through the savanna grasses or whatever, our ancestors and us had the same reaction. We were able to see that coming and we climbed up a tree to get away. Our senses help us survive. Once we feel we can survive and that we're safe, then we can use our senses for the next job, which is for discriminating what these objects mean, it's not just this self-defensive reaction, but it's opening ourselves up to read the meaning of what's around us. What is the teacher? The teacher's up there and she's saying, turn to page 14 and we're going to talk about something called addition. Our senses are not saying, that's not mommy. I don't like the way this thing called school smells. My chair has only 3 legs that touch the ground at the same time. I'm tipping constantly. We want the child to be able to say, okay, those things, yeah, it's not mommy. Yeah, my chair tips a little bit. Yeah, this room smells like chalk. I don't know if people use chalk anymore, but we want to be able to get past the sensations that we're mature enough to realize are not hostile or dangerous. And then we can use our senses to understand what the teacher is saying and to go to page 14 and to get out the pencil. When we have everything going for us, we are doers. When our senses are working against us, I think of these people as doees, not doers, but doees. Life happens to them. They sit on the couch and kind of stay out of the thick of things. Well, we need our kids to be in the thick of things and trying things and taking calculated risks and meeting new challenges with interest and vigor. And when they have sensory processing differences that cause them to retreat, we need to do something about it.
Mm-hmm. as you're speaking, I'm trying to put myself in that person's shoes. Have you found a good way to do that? Like you just gave a great explanation and it was beautiful. And as I'm picturing myself in a place where, you know, the noise perhaps feels scary, and like you were describing in the classroom, right? Can you go into a little bit more about a child's experience in the classroom when they have sensory processing differences? Like, what are they feeling like, and how can adults who are there, like surveys and helping them kind of put themselves in their shoes and experience life through their eyes?
Yes, and I'm glad you asked me that, Veronica. We have to understand that what children are feeling is not going to be what we're feeling. So if the child in the classroom is complaining about the tippy seat, it does no good to say, it's just a tippy seat, get over it. We must respect the fear and discomfort that sensory challenges bring. If you're afraid that you're going to fall off the face of the earth because 3 of the 4 chair legs don't touch the floor, that's what you're worried about. And you can't teach anything to a child who does not feel safe. So we need to understand and respect what's going on. And little kids can't articulate it in words. We have to look at children's behavior to try to sleuth out what the underlying issues are. I recommend that parents look at a questionnaire. They can go to my book. They can go to my website, which is outofsyncchild.com, and look at a questionnaire. And many parents of young children who filled out this questionnaire would say, I didn't realize any of these things were that important. And, you know, of course, you don't want to be critical of your own kid, just as you don't want your child to be miserable and you don't want to take him to the playground if he prefers the library. You know, we don't want to start listing all the things that the kid is doing that are out of sync. On the other hand, if I'm stirring them up a little bit and getting them thinking about these sensory differences, it's really interesting to see what the common issues are.
Is it fair to say that they're essentially going through life feeling unsafe? Like the baseline experience in life is, this is a scary place, this is not safe, I can't.
Yes.
So then
and I am all alone in it. Nobody understands me. That happens a lot too. So with those sensory spectacles on, think, does my child have to eat peanut butter, chunky peanut butter, just because I like it and his brother likes it? If I can get him to eat peanut butter that's smooth, I can make that accommodation. Okay, so let's make accommodations where we can, especially where it's not weird. I'm not saying to keep children out of away from birthday parties or away from the playground. I'm not saying that. I don't want children just to go to the library. I want all children to go to the playground, but with understanding that a shorter time at the playground is enough, that getting into a swing that's very low to the ground and maybe not even swinging on it, maybe just sitting on it is sufficient. But incrementally encouraging children to do things that are uncomfortable for them is not unwise, it's not cruel. It's helpful to help them get their neurological systems accepting sensations that are in our world. So it takes time. How do we get kids to eat broccoli or Brussels sprouts? day one, you say the Brussels sprouts are for the whole family and they're in a bowl on the table. The next day or week, you say, here's a Brussels sprout to sit on your plate. It's just on your plate. It's not touching anything else. It's on the plate. And the next day, please pick up the Brussels sprout. And then the next day, please kiss the Brussels sprout. And so there's a whole program you can go through. It's called EAT. If people are interested in their picky eaters, go look up Kelly Dorfman, DORFMAN.com. And Kelly has a program for helping kids eat. So
Yeah.
incrementally, you change your behavior so the children can develop theirs. But always remember, children need to feel safe, and they need to feel that they are respected for having feelings that they may not be able to articulate, and you may not be able to understand fully, but you need to recognize it and not make it more complicated.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So I'm thinking of probably how many home conflicts could be resolved if we can put on a new set of glasses or a new lens, so that rather than arguing over the socks on the feet, we just come up with a different solution, or the clothes and the textures, or the broccoli. Eat your broccoli, and then create all kinds of other downstream challenges as a result. So
a good way to get kids ready for those socks. Well, first of all, make sure that they have no seams in them. And there are such things. There are seamless socks. Again, just Google it and you'll find out. But a good way to get a kid ready to get dressed, a child who has tactile issues or proprioceptive issues and whatever, is some vigorous activity, like jumping for a few minutes on a little trampoline, like a little exercise trampoline that you can have in your house. Or you can rig up a hammock in a doorway on like a chinning bar and let the child swing for a little while in the comfort and safety of the hammock. Or a big rub down, like with a loofah sponge, down, 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 down. Or bear hugs. Or figure out what your child likes physically and think physically. Don't talk. Just help the child with what you know. Does he like really hot water? Does he wake up in a cold shower? Does a washcloth to his face help him? Does jumping on the bed before he puts his feet on the floor help? Let him do that and then go to the task. And you'll see, I think there will be some improvement, because movement gets us in sync. And these days, in the year 2021 or 22, our kids are hardly moving between COVID, between screen time.
that was a question I was going to ask, if you'd be so kind to share, like, what are, given to the children's typical experiences these days, what concerns do you have for their development, if any?
I do. I am concerned about children's vision, because everything is screen time, and so we're seeing more and more kids who are myopic. They have they're nearsighted. They can't see the far distance very well because they haven't had experience focusing on the horizon. Children are there are many more overweight children than we used to have, because they're not moving, and their coordination is not great. Tying shoelaces is hard, and we make life easy for our kids. We think, okay, he can't tie his shoelaces, I'm going to give him Velcro. But that makes it harder for him later. So by making life easier for kids now, we're making it harder for them later. Okay, there are ways, there are games, there's a blue shoelace and a red shoelace on the same shoe, and you can get going that way and learn how to make bunny ears. And I mean, there are all kinds of gimmicks for learning to tie shoelaces, and it takes practice. We have to practice. Everyone needs to practice.
Yeah.
Kids with SPD need to practice more, sometimes 20 times more, to put the seatbelt on in the car. You know, for each of us, it takes 2 or 3 times to figure out how to put a seatbelt on. For kids with SPD, it might take 18 times to put on a seatbelt. So, of course, we're in a hurry. So, mommy puts the seatbelt on the kid. No, mom, no. The kid learns to put the seatbelt on. That is essential. We have to make children work and learn, and it's physical stuff. And stop talking. We talk too much.
So all these sensory systems aren't like, their whole job is to get experience in the world and develop, right? Like when, I'm just wondering, what's the timeline of development for all of these sensory systems? I mean, isn't it into even like upper elementary ages, or when does it keep on going after that? What does that look like? Because they need experiences. And I guess I'm just concerned, like when we pass a 2-year-old a cell phone to keep them entertained at the dinner table, like that's shifting their sensory experience in the world from what our bodies have been doing for hundreds and thousands of years. Like, so what are the potential implications?
Well, in that example, the child won't learn about conversation, or won't learn about using a crayon on a piece of paper, or or will learn that what he craves, which is video time, game time, is always available for him. I mean, socially, he needs to learn. Sometimes you have to wait. Sometimes you have to make conversation and be sociable. Sometimes, you know, you could play games in a restaurant, like find the lady wearing red eyeglasses, or listen for the sound of water pouring, or, you know, play sensory games. What do you hear in this restaurant? What do you see? What do you smell? Do you smell cinnamon? You smell onions? You know, you could engage the kid. And I hate it when I see families. Well, I actually, in about 2 years, I haven't been to a restaurant, so I haven't seen families lately handing over the cell phone. But I abhor that. To go to the restaurant and take some string, and take some big elastic bands with you to the restaurant. Hand that over and see what the kid can do with it. Is he going to stretch it so hard that it will snap? Maybe. Will it hurt? Maybe. Will he have learned something? Yes. Will he reach for another one? Yes. So, you know, think sensory.
Right. Give their bodies opportunities to experience.
Use your bodies, yes. And think of relating to your child. I loved your question earlier about getting ourselves into the shoes of kids with sensory issues. Let's do that, because we all know what it's like to have the flu and not want to get out of bed to go to the bathroom. We know how awful it is to be dizzy. What if you were dizzy like that every day of your life because you had a vestibular problem and you're 4 years old and you can't explain it? And why is everybody mad at me because I'm not going on the swing? I'll die if I go on the swing. How can a kid say that? So
I think that's the beautiful part too, right? When we operate in the space where we're just at the edge of the kid's comfort level, right? Like, so they feel comfortable, but they can be empowered to take the next step. And we let them take each little next step. it opens up a door of possibility for them that is never going to be open to them unless we come into that space. So it's very empowering, right? I think sometimes people have a
Yes.
hard time
Yes.
saying that this is what's going on. And if we shift it to a lot of what you were talking about and think of it from the perspective of what is now going to become possible for this human being that wouldn't have been possible if we didn't take this approach, it can be invigorating.
Right.
Thank you, Carol. It has been such a pleasure, and you are very motivational and empathetic and inspirational to help address this with our kids. And I just would encourage to get into the book, even the Out of Sync Child, and get that, because you will likely identify something inside of there, whether your child has a sensory processing difference or not. And because all of us humans have something going on too. And it's helped me as a parent understand when I'm in sensory overload with too much sound in my ears, and then my propensity to get stressed. So anyway, I'm rambling, but thank you, Carol, for being here today, for sharing this message. And I encourage everybody to check out the links below to link to Carol and what she has available for you.
Wonderful. Thank you, Veronica, for this opportunity, and God bless everyone.
Thank you, Carol. That is amazing. And I know that Carol is such an expert in sensory processing and being able to understand it and explain it in an easily accessible way. So absolutely, I would recommend, if you want to go more into sensory processing, check out her webpage, outofsyncchild.com, which is also linked down below, or the book, Out of Sync Child. Also, if you are interested in more about understanding your child and picking any next steps, go to whatnowADHD.com, and I will see you there and be cheering you on.